Hey, what's up, friends? This is Dr. Sachin Kale back with another podcast. This time we are discussing disseminated intravascular coagulation. The idea for this podcast came from beautiful lecture by Dr. Craig Kitchens at National Institute of Health website. He is also an author of a beautiful book called Consultative Hemostasis and Thrombosis. He emphasizes the importance of clinical laboratory correlation in this particular disease. To begin with, let's start with the pathophysiology and etiology of disseminated intravascular coagulation. All of us know that disseminated intravascular coagulation, the basic three mechanisms include the tissue destruction, sepsis and endothelial cell injury. All these things lead to massive release of tissue thromboplastin, which causes microvascular thrombosis. And we also know that labs, that is prothrombin time, partial thromboplastin time, are abnormally prolonged, platelet count is decreased. But beyond that, the concepts become a little bit hazy. So I am going to tell you few cases that Dr. Craig Kitchens discussed in his lecture at NIH, which will illustrate the importance of clinico-pathological or clinico-laboratory correlations in this particular disease. So we know that the widespread microvascular thrombosis that is caused by either massive tissue destruction, sepsis or endothelial cell injury leads to bleeding by three different mechanisms. First, of course, is consumption of clotting factors and platelets because of thrombosis, and that leads to bleeding. Second is activation of plasmin causing proteolysis of clotting factors, which again aggravates the bleeding. Third mechanism is fibrinolysis. Fibrinolysis causes release of fibrin split products. Fibrin split products cause inhibition of thrombin, platelet aggregation and fibrin polymerization. So this again leads to bleeding. So this is the three-pronged attack as if by this particular injury. And adding insult to injury is microvascular thrombosis causing vascular occlusion and ischemic tissue damage. It also causes microangiopathic hemolytic anemia. So this is the complicated disease that attacks the body by various mechanisms. International Society for Thrombosis and Hemostasis has given some objective criteria by which laboratory values can be evaluated and more confident diagnosis can be made of DIC, also called the consumption coagulopathy. So these criteria are based on laboratory values of platelet count, fibrin degradation products, prothrombin time and fibrinogen. For positive diagnosis, a score of 5 or more is required. On the other hand, a score of less than 5 does not rule out DIC, but suggests DIC is not definitive. And if clinically indicated, this test can be repeated. So how do we score this? If platelet count has not fallen below 1 lakh, we assign a score of 0. If platelet count is between 50,000 and 100,000, score is 1. But if platelet count is severely low, less than 50,000, then the score is 2. And if FDP are strongly increased, score is 3. If they are moderately increased, the score is 2. If they are not at all increased, the score is 0. And prothrombin time. If prothrombin time is prolonged mildly, that is less than 3 seconds, above the upper range of normal, the score is 0. But if it is prolonged more than 3 seconds and less than 6 seconds, the score is 1. If the prothrombin time prolongation is more than 6 seconds, above the upper limit of normal, then the score is 2. If fibrinogen has fallen below 1, the score is 1. But if fibrinogen is more than 1, the score is 0. This is how this ISTH scoring works. So score of 5 or more, a clear diagnosis of overt DIC. But if the score is less than 5, then it could be non-overt or a chronic DIC. That we have to remember. Now, as emphasized by Dr. Craig Kitchens, He says that clinical correlation of these abnormal lab results is very important. Otherwise, we may all be misled in thinking of DIC in conditions which are otherwise not that severe. For example, the cases that he discussed. The first case, a case of a 60-year-old alcoholic presenting with increasing ascites, petechiae and icterus. Also had a big spleen. The lab values were prothrombin time of 16, partial thromboplastin time of 62 seconds, platelets of 55,000, FDP is positive, albumin is 2 gram. So this is a alcoholic patient with liver disease. But lab values, again, if you do ISTH scoring, they are somewhat abnormal. Though they might not be diagnostic, but they are pointing towards DIC. But is this DIC? No, it's not. Because the patient is not bleeding actively anywhere in this particular case, though the labs are abnormal. And why the labs are abnormal? Because the liver is sick. Hello, it's not producing any clotting factors. So we are going to have abnormal PT and PTT. Of course, platelets are low because of huge spleen, large spleen causing hypersplenism. FDP is high not because of increased production but decreased clearance, because it gets cleared from liver again. So abnormal lab values but not DIC. One example. Let's take the second case. Second case is that of a 45-year-old male patient who underwent splenectomy for hereditary spherocytosis. Post-operatively, there was fall in blood pressure. So ringer lactate was infused and huge amounts of ringer lactates were infused, that is 6 liters. Patient's hematocrit at the time was 18, PT was 17, PTT was 44, platelets were low, 70,000, FDP was positive. Patient was given 4 units of blood. Hematocrit rose to 22%. Platelets further dipped down to 30,000, but PT-PTT was unchanged. It was prolonged. So again, abnormal lab findings pointing towards DIC. But is this DIC? Patient is not yet bleeding from anywhere. So probably not. Then what's the explanation? Blood with all its clotting factor is lost and replaced by water, that is ringer lactate, leading to abnormal PT and PTT. Splenomegaly with its hypersplenism has caused thrombocytopenia. And FDP can be positive in any hospitalized post-operative patients. Though they won't be very high, only mildly positive, but they will be. So this is an example of what Craig Kitchens calls classic delusional coagulopathy. This is a delusion created by lab findings and misinterpreting of lab findings. Now he also tells a story about a 45-year-old man who was playing with 5 feet long snake, a viper, and one of the two was drunk, and of course it was man. Then snake don't get drunk, right? And snake bit the man. Was there any other option to the snake? It was going to bite. So the patient presented with hematocrit of 42, platelets were 1,60,000, PT-PTT unclottable, FDP is very high, but no clinical bleeding. But of course, where the snake bit, ecchymosis were present on that particular hand. So is this DIC? PT-PTT unclottable, FDP very high, all lab findings worrisome. But this is not typical DIC, because this snake bite destroyed all the clotting factors, leading to unclottable PT and PTT. Venom also converted fibrinogen to FDPs, leading to very high FDPs. Now, though it is listed as a cause of DIC in many textbooks, this is more thought of as venom-induced consumption coagulopathy. And this is little bit different compared to DIC, in which microvascular thrombosis and end organ damage is the primary thing that leads to decreased clotting factors, activation of plasminogen, and leading to this bleeding. But this is not the case in case of venom-induced consumption coagulopathy. Though a subset of patients develop thrombosis, that is thought to be different compared to what happens in DIC. So last case is that of a 45-year-old man with acute myeloid leukemia. Here the induction chemotherapy was started, but blood pressure dropped to 80/40. Pulse rate rose to 110. Respiratory rate rose to 38. There was oozing of blood from nose, gums, IV sites and port sites. So is this DIC? Yes, this is what it is. You know DIC when you see it. The setting is perfect, patient is bleeding, and labs are going to support this. So this is classic DIC, which will be supported both clinically as well as with laboratory findings. I hope these few cases and a brief introduction of DIC will help us remember this DIC and ISTH criteria when we are confronted with a case. Thank you so much for listening. This is Sachin Kale saying bye bye. See you again next week.